It was always there, something ancient, coiled like a serpent in my gut, waiting for silence. It wasn't loud at first, just a whisper beneath everything, beneath conversations, beneath birdsong, beneath laughter. A low murmur that made the quiet unbearable and the night sacred. I remember being a child and lying awake in bed, staring at the ceiling fan. I'd imagine its blades slicing through the dark. I'd imagine the thwip, thwip, thwip turning to a squelch as it cut through something wet. A dog maybe, a bird, my own arm. Even then, the hunger was whispering. It never shouted. It didn't need to. It pulsed, slow and steady, like a second heartbeat, growing louder as I aged, until it wasn't something I could ignore, until its rhythm synced with my own. But I remember the first time I fed it. Her name was Emily. She was my neighbor's daughter, 9 years old, just a child. She wore cartoon socks and carried a glittery pink backpack covered in unicorns. Her laugh could cut through even the deepest depression, like light breaking through a thick fog. A laugh that made you forget pain, even for a moment. That's why the hunger chose her. She lived 2 doors down in the pale blue house with peeling paint and wind chimes that clinked like bones when the wind blew. Sometimes I'd see her drawing with chalk on the sidewalk. Flowers, smiley faces, sons with sunglasses, always alone. Her mother worked nights. Her father was never around. She was the kind of child who made you think the world still had magic in it. But magic is just an illusion, and illusions must be broken. At first I fought it. I turned away from the window when I saw her. I avoided going outside when she was there. But the hunger, it's patient. It watches, waits. Then it presses its mouth against your ear and asks. It doesn't demand. It suggests. It coos. You could make it quiet, just once. Imagine the silence afterward. Clean, absolute. It wore me down. The first time I spoke to her was by accident. She dropped her coloring book and the pages scattered in the wind. I helped her gather them. She smiled. "Thank you, mister," she said. "You're nice." My stomach turned, not from guilt, but from something worse. The hunger hissed its approval. That night I barely slept. My dreams were red. I planned for days. I bought candy, researched how to cut through bone, lined the garage floor with thick plastic I claimed was for painting. I practiced smiles in the mirror, human ones. She came willingly. Her eyes lit up. "Really? What kind?" I shrugged. "Striped, like a tiger. It's hiding in the garage. Maybe you can help me find it." She skipped behind me, swinging her arms. The garage was dim, dusty. The only light came from a flickering bulb that swung gently, casting shadows that danced like spirits across the walls. The concrete was cool beneath our feet. The plastic crinkled as we stepped over it. "Kitty," she called, crouching down, peeking under a shelf. The hunger clawed up my throat. My hands trembled. "Kitty," she repeated, crawling on all fours, giggling. "I think it went under here." Tone flat, trance-like. She never saw me raise the hammer. I stood over her, my breath short and shallow, my heart thundering in my ears. Time slowed. The hunger held my arms steady, then a crack, like a watermelon dropped from a great height. Her body went limp, then twitched, once, twice. The hunger didn't cheer. It didn't roar. It purred. I stared down at her, her green eyes wide and glassy, a thin line of blood snaking from her temple. Her lips were slightly parted, like she was about to ask something, but the words were gone. I knelt beside her, touched her cheek, still warm. There was no panic, no guilt, only silence. Beautiful, cleansing silence. I could think clearly for the first time in months. I didn't dismember her. Not Emily. I wasn't ready then. I didn't understand the rituals yet. I only knew the hunger wanted her gone, consumed, silenced, erased from the noisy world that had forgotten how to listen to it. I cleaned methodically. The tools had been prepared. I wrapped her in the plastic, tight like a chrysalis. Her shoes were pink with little sparkles. One of them had fallen off. I placed it beside her, neatly. Her small body felt light in my arms, like carrying a bundle of laundry. I carried her to the crawl space behind the house. It was damp, cool, earthy. I remember the way the soil gave under the shovel, the way it stuck to my gloves like wet flesh. I whispered to her as I dug, not out of guilt, but reverence, like I was performing a sacrament. Each word came from somewhere else, an ancient language I didn't know I knew. The hunger listened, it approved. I buried her deep. In the house I burned her drawings, one by one watching unicorns and rainbows curl and blacken, and kept one, the one she had handed me when I helped her gather the pages. It showed a stick figure with green eyes and a big smile, holding hands with a smaller one. She'd labeled it in crayon, "Me and my new friend." They still have it, framed, hidden in a drawer beneath the floorboards. That night, I slept like a baby. The hunger, for the first time, was full. After Emily, the town unraveled. Search parties swept through the woods. Flyers were stapled to telephone poles, her face smiling out from every corner like a ghost that refused to fade. I stood among them, offering condolences, shaking heads, even handing out bottled water to the volunteers who combed the park where she'd last been seen. I played my role perfectly, the concerned neighbour, the quiet man who kept to himself but was always polite, helpful. I lit a candle at her vigil. I held it steady in my hands while the flames flickered and the prayers droned. And all the while the hunger twisted inside me. It didn't fade with her death. If anything, it grew sharper, hungrier. The silence I'd earned that night was temporary, a fleeting peace. Beneath my skin, beneath my heartbeat, something coiled tighter, more insistent. The thought came, not as panic but inevitability. I would need to feed again. I would need to find someone new. But not just anyone. The hunger had changed. It craved something different this time. It whispered in subtler tones, coaxing me toward new prey. One less innocent, more fractured. Someone the world wouldn't miss so easily. That's when I saw him, Daniel. 14 years old, all elbows and awkward silences. He lived with his aunt and her boyfriend in a fading yellow house at the edge of town, right where the pavement began to crack and weeds spilled up through the gravel like veins. He had jet black hair that always fell into his eyes and a nervous stutter that made every sentence sound like a fight with himself. Kids at school teased him. I saw it. I watched from across the street one afternoon as a trio of boys surrounded him, poking at his backpack, spitting words like retard and mute. He didn't fight back. He didn't cry either. He just stood there, frozen, like if he stayed still long enough, he might disappear. Sinister curiosity, internal whisper, and that's when the hunger stirred again. Dark, calm fascination. It didn't snarl like it had with Emily. It whispered, a low, contemplative murmur, as if studying him. There was no rush, no urgency, just interest, fascination. He is overlooked, it seemed to say. No one will miss him right away. He is the perfect evolution. I followed him for 2 weeks. Never close enough to be noticed, just near enough to learn. He walked the same path home every day, along an abandoned railway line littered with broken bottles, rusted train parts, and discarded wrappers. The trees pressed close, their branches like ribs closing round a forgotten artery. Mechanical precision. Planning. No cameras, no houses nearby, no witnesses. It was perfect. Detached. Focused. I rented a van, bought a duffel bag, heavy-duty plastic sheets, gloves, zip ties. I chose a steel pipe this time, heavier than the hammer. I wanted to feel the weight. I wanted to earn the silence, calm before the storm. I rehearsed everything, the timing, the strike, the disposal. The night came, humid and starless. The sky above the railway looked bruised, a deep purple smeared with black. Tense, creeping anticipation. His footsteps came first, soft crunches on gravel, unhurried, routine. Then the silhouette appeared between the trees, hunched, slouched, backpack dragging one strap behind him like a broken wing. Sudden, brutal. I stepped out from the brush. He didn't even see me. The pipe connected just above his ear with a meaty clang, a sound that shot through my bones like lightning. He dropped instantly, spasming once, then going limp. A tiny whimper escaped his throat, wet, almost like a hiccup. Efficient, cold execution. I moved fast, slipped the zip ties around his wrists and ankles, taped his mouth shut, lifted him, heavier than I'd guessed, and hauled him into the van. Reverent, ritualistic. The hunger didn't scream this time. It didn't tremble. It waited, calm, almost reverent, like a priest watching the beginning of a ritual. Dark setting, haunting tone. I drove to a closed-down greenhouse on the outskirts of town. I'd broken the lock the day before. No power, no security, just rows of broken glass panels and rotting potting soil. Nature had started reclaiming it. Vines crawling along the walls, rats nesting in the storage bins. There in the center I had prepared the table, wood, old, blood-stained, already from a test run with a deer carcass I'd used the week before, helpless horror. Daniel stirred as I laid him down. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then they widened. He tried to scream, his legs jerked, bound by nylon. I saw it the moment realization hit him, the terror, the betrayal of his own body. I didn't speak. Words were for people. He wasn't that anymore. I began with the throat. Not to kill, but to silence, a deep arcing cut that opened like a second mouth. Blood sprayed, warm and metallic, covering my hands, soaking into the sleeves of my coat. He gurgled, shuddered. I watched his pupils dilate. It was beautiful. Then I opened the chest cavity. The bone saw whined, ribs split like dry twigs. His heart was still twitching when I pulled it free. The hunger purred. I held it aloft like an offering. No longer chaotic, no longer messy like Emily. This was controlled, precise, art. When it was done, when the hunger sighed its satisfaction, I set to work on the disposal. No crawl space this time, no burial. I brought him to the river. Not all at once, piece by piece, sealed in thick garbage bags, weighted down with scrap metal and tossed into the current like meat offerings. The current accepted them eagerly. The splash each part made was almost soothing, chilling keepsake. The last piece I kept was his eye, just one, brown, soft, still glistening. I preserved it in a jar filled with formaldehyde and placed it beside Emily's drawing beneath the floorboards. Ironic, cold commentary. The police made posters, held press conferences, talked about Daniel's troubled home life and possible runaway status. They searched the wrong woods, interviewed the wrong people. I watched the vigils on television, eating cold cereal. Some nights, I thought I heard his stutter in the wind, but the hunger was evolving. It didn't just want blood now. It wanted difference. It wanted variation, calm but ominous. Children were too easy, too similar. The pattern risked exposure. The next offering would be older, wiser, more trusting, more fragile in a different way. Emily was first. She liked to draw. Unicorns mostly, smiling suns and happy trees, the kind of things you'd tape to the fridge. I kept one of her sketches, not for nostalgia, just to remember what innocence looked like. The crawl space still smells like crayons when it rains. Daniel came next, too curious for his own good. He followed me once, thought I didn't notice. I let him believe that, until I invited him inside. Low, calm, almost affectionate. You met Emily. You watched Daniel die. Claire, she screamed the prettiest. But that was just the beginning. The archive goes deeper. Some entries are older. Some are waiting to be written. Her story is next, and trust me, you don't want to miss it. You think you're safe because there's a screen between us? I told myself that once too. Subscribe, or don't, but I already know your name and your IP address.